2/3 of all the firefighters in our country are volunteers. They don't get paid when they put out flames or stop your home or business from going up in smoke, not to mention saving someone's life. They go through the same kind of training that career firefighters go through, and they do it all while they're going to their own 9-to-5 jobs or running the ranch or making sure their home is running smoothly. It's a big commitment, and the need is getting bigger. Considering how busy we are, not only because nothing really is 9 to 5 anymore,
right?
Especially if you're in rural parts of West 605 and raising cattle or got a farm going on. It's never 9 to 5. So are you seeing that sort of lifestyle take a toll on the number of people who volunteer to become a volunteer fireman?
Yes, we do. That's an issue that is being faced not only here in West 605, but is also being seen across the world as far as volunteerism in general, and it especially hits us because of the critical nature of the service that are being provided, that it is putting additional stress and strain onto the people that we are recruiting or coming into the service, staying with the service, and being able to balance that work-life balance between the demands at work, the demands of the family, and then what other extracurricular activities they're doing, such as being involved in the volunteer fire service. And that is affecting what's going on.
Have we seen, like, over the years, a steady trend, a downward trend?
Yes.
And then what kind of an effect did the pandemic have on all this?
The pandemic here in our area, here specifically in Pennington County, we saw 49%, have seen a 49% increase just in call volume to our volunteer services, and that is significant.
So calls are up, members of the fire departments are down.
Right. In general, if you look at through the history of the past couple of decades here, our membership is definitely down, and that's not just here. But there is an issue as far as recruitment and retention and keeping up with the amount of just the call volume that we do have, along with the other demands, the training and everything else that goes on. Each of our departments recruit in their local area. We use all the social media platforms of the day, and then whether there's an event going on, whether they have a chili feed or a pancake feed, or they're involved in parades, whatever we need to do there, and as far as always having the door open for people to investigate what's going on. Some of them have special events for that. We maintain a website where people can say, hey, I'm interested in becoming volunteer firefighter, volunteer EMT, whatever, and we help get that information back out to our agencies, out to our departments to follow up on that person there. We did do a campaign here 10, 12 years ago. There was a pretty large campaign that was put together with some grant funding, and it wasn't necessarily as successful, a traditional media campaign, billboards, that type of stuff. But some studies will tell you what they're looking for. In the state of Virginia, for example, they spent a massive amount of money. What are they looking for in a volunteer firefighter? And they're looking for people that are in their late 20s and 30s, and then it's just a regular person in the community. If you look at it from day one to even now, it is across the spectrum of people in the community. And if you're interested in serving your fellow man, getting additional training, leadership training, or life skills, this is where those people can come together and everybody's equal. It doesn't matter what you do elsewhere. Mm-hmm. Because, when you're on the front lines of the fire doesn't care who you are. And so it's a great equalizer for people where they can actually work with their fellow man on that.
The history of volunteer firefighters goes back a long way. In fact, some of the first volunteer firefighters were our nation's founding fathers: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Samuel Adams, Paul Revere, and a guy named Benjamin Franklin. In fact, in 1736, Ben Franklin created the first ever volunteer fire brigade in our country, before there really even was a country officially. The first female volunteer firefighter on record was a slave named Molly Williams back in the early 1800s. The reason for volunteer firefighters back in the day was pretty much the same as it is today: to save homes, businesses, and lives. and they came up with a concept called mutual aid, something that's a cornerstone of volunteer firefighting today.
Mutual aid is a concept, again, in a practice that goes back back into colonial times, where maybe the next village or the next town over would be overwhelmed by the fire or whatever the problem was, and then they would call for help from the next community. When Baltimore was on fire in the early 1800s, they actually loaded firefighting equipment up in Washington onto trains, Washington, D.C., and actually hauled it into Baltimore to help fight the fire. So it's a concept and a practice that has gone on. It is used extensively in the fire service. Here in western South Dakota, it's one of the cornerstones for us as far as being able to provide services back to the people, back to our communities. And the ability of the neighbors to help each other, that is very much a founding principle and in practice here in our fire service.
Let's bring this forward a few, maybe more than 1 or 2 decades, and let's bring it to present day West 605. So how does the concept of mutual aid and a volunteer fire department play out in our neck of the woods here?
Use of mutual aid and use of our volunteer fire service here in western South Dakota, it is one of our cornerstone things, and it does allow every department, every agency doesn't need necessarily to have every single piece of equipment that they may need, whether it's specialized equipment, whether it's storage problems, whether it's funding issues or whatever. So we can balance some of that equipment and needs amongst our different fire departments. So one may have the space and more need for that. One may not have, another department may not have the space to store that or the funding need for it, but will need it occasionally. You can use that piece of equipment through a mutual aid agreement.
Give me an example. I mean, let's say one town, fire breaks out, and so they need a specialized piece of equipment that they don't have, so they call someplace else. How does that work?
Well, the mutual aid here is all pre-planned, and it's automatic. We have it worked into our dispatch network. Our agreement's all in place. A good example of that is this past year in the summer of 2022, when there was a significant fire in the downtown core area of Wall, and Wall needed help immediately. There's no time to wait, and through our mutual aid agreements, in fact, we practice this on a daily basis. The specialized equipment such as aerial equipment, other pumping apparatus was brought to the scene immediately and helped able to contain the incident to the structure of overage.
How does that work logistically when you've got crew members from different towns, different communities, all working together with different pieces of equipment? Who's calling the shots in a scenario?
We use the incident command system.
Okay.
It's that dates back to California in the 1960s, where they were grappling with this issue. It's come up, evolved into a very efficient 5 core things that we worry about in incident command. We train all of our people from the get-go. From the initial start in the incident command system, so everybody's familiar with that.
So when the crews arrive on the scene of a fire, they know the procedure, they know who's going to be in command and in charge.
Right, and we make sure that all of our people have some type of command training, some type of leadership training, and understand where they fit into what's going on. Because there isn't time to sit around and vacillate about something. Action needs, in those situations, action needs to be taken.
There are more than 8,500 volunteer firefighters right now in the state of South Dakota. That's 94% of the total number of firefighters here. Once again, these are men and women who go through the same kind of training as career firefighters do, and they put their lives on the line the way career firefighters do. People like Charles Maud, the chief of the volunteer fire department in Scenic, South Dakota.
I'm a rancher.
Rancher.
Yep, I ranch 7 days a week, I guess you would say, 24 hours a day if it has to be.
Okay, so on that note, and I don't mean any disrespect at all, but my next question has got to be why? Why do this volunteer fire department work in addition to everything else you do?
Well, it's for me, myself, I became chief because no one really wanted the job. And I had some past fire experience. I've been on lots of boards and organizations, and I've ran some of them. And my peers, I guess, in the community decided that I should be the chief. And
Any volunteers?
Yeah, it was definitely a railroad experience. But anyways, through that, then I have a group of guys behind me that sit on our board that are very experienced firefighters, I would say, and we're all ranchers. And the reason we do it is purely for our own need back on our ranch. We're all.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if we have a fire on our ranch, we got to take it into our own hands, so to speak. And so there's nothing better than have a bunch of ranchers that understand that concept, helping you put that out. I mean, if there's a 10 by 10 square, we're probably not going to let it burn because that's enough to feed cow for a day. And so they're going to go put it out, and we go to extra levels to get it stopped faster than some maybe that wasn't as aware of the situation.
You got to be putting in a tremendous amount of hours between the ranch and the fire department here. What kind of a toll, if I can get a little personal here, what kind of a toll does it take on you and your family?
Well, it's definitely like nights. I'll spend probably between 3, maybe 4 nights a week working fire, one way or another, whether it's in my office at home. I'm on the county board or this organization, either mechanicking or writing grants, trying to get money to come our direction, billing, things like that. That plays into it big. I've kind of always taken a lot of that on myself because the rest of my guys, they're volunteering their time in other manners in the organization. So we each kind of have our things that we do. As far as toll on my family, I guess I just don't spend them hours with my kids and stuff that I probably would. My wife, they're in full support of it. Just for example, we had a fire that was encroaching on our ranch last spring, and we were able to stop the thing half mile from the boundary line. And my wife said you can spend as much time as you need if that's what it has to be to get it to stop. So she understands. She comes from an ag background. The grass is probably just as important to her as it is me in our livelihood. So she understands, and my kids are interested in it too. They'll ride along. They come see. They understand that fire's not good, and they already understand they're 5 and 7, and that when fire's going, it's serious business.
So I can imagine, if I can interject this, serving your fellow man is all good and fine, but from your perspective, you're saving your own ranch.
Yep.
and your neighbors probably.
Right. Yep. Well, this organization was set up, like many volunteer fire departments, as a membership-driven organization, and it still is. And we are about the only one left in the county, to my knowledge. Maybe there's another one, but that each member pays in $50 a year to have fire suppression for their ranch. And most of the time, those are the guys that are also working the trucks. And so it's like an insurance almost, that we're going to come protect them. And it keeps the fuel in the tanks and the tires under them, and under these vehicles, so that way we can act when it's time.
According to Chief Maud, the experience of fighting fires is being passed on from one generation to the next.
Manpower hasn't been real bad since I've taken over. I know they went through a transition period of time before us young guys started coming back, that they were short of men to run trucks. There used to be a man in every truck if you were lucky. But now with the people we have, the way that's kind of going, we have lots of young guys that are interested in jumping in these. We can probably put 2 guys to a truck if we need to pretty easily. Might be one old guy, one young guy type of deal. And we've always thought that the manpower, we needed those old guys because they have the knowledge. And we have young people that maybe haven't seen some incidents, that they just are new and know the older generation knows how to handle it better. And anyhow, as far as getting people lately, we've been really lucky to get that. We pretty much have a really solid core of people of about 10 to 11 that will, when the call goes off, they're here.
Fighting fires to protect your own rangeland is one thing, but Maud says he's learned a few things as well.
I've learned a lot about the fire service, in this county, in this area. You know, we deal with the federal guys on the Forest Service lands, we deal with the state on state lands and things of that nature. I've ran this organization and have gained lots of knowledge on how to deal with people, you know, personnel problems.
Bureaucracy?
Bureaucracy is the big one, yep. And then sitting on the county board, of course, I've seen all the political moves and things like that that go on there, and very interesting and very knowledgeable to take that in.
Volunteer fire departments respond to the needs of their general area, wherever that might be, whether it's farmland or rangeland, or even suburban homes tucked away in the pines. The Whispering Pines Volunteer Fire Department serves an area just outside of Rapid City. Jeremy Walla is the fire chief there.
This fire district used to be much, much larger, and over the years it's kind of shrunk down and other districts have formed and changed. At one point in the early days, we had 7 stations with this fire district. We're now down to the 1 station. We basically cover from Catron Boulevard to 385 and a little bit each way of Sheridan Lake Road. So we have 21 members of the department. We are now, since February of 2022, 2 full-time paid staff and the other 19 volunteers. We're always looking for more volunteers to join. There is no limit on how many we can have. The bigger side of that is trying to find people who have the time and have the desire to volunteer and take the training. So we do many things here. We do structure fire, we do wildland fire. We also do some light rescue, and then we also do many other things in the county. So one of those being we provide the cascade system for structure fires in other districts, and that is breathing air for our air packs. So we show up on scene, we're able to fill those air packs as we go interior, use the air up, and then come back out. We have to get a new bottle. Similar to diving, but it's not really the same setup, but same concept.
All right.
You're operating on captured volume of air. Okay. So that's one of the services we provide in the county through our mutual aid agreements.
I'm glad you brought that up. Explain how that concept of mutual aid, or that policy of mutual aid, works for you here at Whispering Pines.
So the way that works, and it does in any district, is you can sign the memorandum of understanding with all the other districts. And basically what that says is when we're dispatched for a certain call type, so if we pick a structure fire, whether it's in our district or outside of our district, according to that MOU, is we're signing on to go and help those other departments, and they're signing on to come and help us. So again, you know, NFPA standards, you should have 17 people on a structure fire, a couple different apparatus, and you can't always provide that as a single station with volunteers, because we never really know how many people are going to show up for every call type, and it depends on the time of day. If everybody's at work, we may not see, you know, the 17 people show up. So through that memorandum of understanding and that mutual aid agreement, when we get alarmed, the other stations will get alarmed as well, and we set up run cards with dispatch. So when that alarm happens, we kind of just go out in concentric circles based on the size of the incident, and those departments within that radius come and bring vehicles, people, you know, and the expertise to come put out the fire. So we do a lot of that in this county and in the state.
Fighting fires in the Whispering Pines area is a bit different than the situation in Scenic. Here, you're mainly dealing with medical calls, rescue, and structure fires. And the training that's needed to save lives and property costs time and money.
We are asking a lot. We're asking, like you said, hundreds of hours to become certified as a firefighter, to become certified as a wildland firefighter, to become certified as an EMT. The other piece to this that people don't really realize is there's a lot of travel involved. There's a lot of trainings that we can't or don't get here. So if you know you've reached the level where you need the next piece to bring more information or better knowledge of the job, you have to go somewhere else to do it. And a lot of times departments can't pay for that.
So it's time now for some tough questions. What does the future look like for volunteer fire departments? Are they a sustainable way to keep people and property safe?
That is a really big question, and the answer is yes and no. The yes part of it is, in those really rural areas, there just is not a tax base. You know, you may get, even within Pennington County, you may get to a point where you have 6 or 8 homeowners or landowners, and that's the entire district.
Yeah.
And they're paying to buy the fire trucks. They are the volunteers. A lot of them have their own quote-unquote fire engine sitting in their barn. They don't have a station because that's all they've got.
Yep.
And they're still out there getting the training, doing the training. This day and age, what does help is we can do virtual training. So we can use Microsoft Teams, we can use Zoom, we can use, you know, those online aspects and provide training classes to those departments, so they aren't traveling, you know, 100 miles, 200 miles to go to a training and then pay for the training and then travel back home. They can now do it from their home. They can do it from their station. We really try to leverage those kinds of things too when we can. On the no side of it is the busier we get and the more economic strain that is placed on individuals and families, that just means more work hours, more people in the household working, which means less time to volunteer, to do those things that you want to do or you think that you should do. If you feel an obligation to help your fellow neighbors, but you don't have time, because it does take time, and that's a big investment for people.
They give up time with their families. They train for worst-case scenarios, often at their own cost, all to put their own lives on the line for the sake of their neighbors. I don't know about you, but I'm glad there are people like this in West 605.